This is a brief overview of the body of knowledge published by the Association for Project Management, or the APM. This body of knowledge outlines a set of concepts, terms, and activities that make up the professional domain. The Association for Project Management body of knowledge has expanded over time to reflect the role of project-based working in achieving objectives for change at strategic and operational levels, involving the development of new or amended products, processes, or other capabilities, and across private, public, and third sectors. The APM explicitly acknowledged the flexibility to choose between multiple forms of the project lifecycle, from one designed to guide the management of delivered change in a linear fashion, to one designed to guide the shaping of emergent change in an incremental, iterative, or evolutionary way. So rather than trying to simplify the choice of being a matter of waterfall versus agile, project leaders acknowledge the reality that many project-based endeavors now adopt some sort of a hybrid, linear, iterative lifecycle approach. And this flexibility is reflected throughout the standard. The standard is made up of 4 chapters. The first chapter, Setting Up for Success, is written primarily for leaders within organizations who have decisions to make about the role of projects, programs, and portfolios in implementing strategy. The second chapter, Preparing for Change, is written for people charged with leading any project, program, or portfolio of any size and complexity. The third chapter, People and Behaviors, is written for anyone involved in projects, programs, and portfolios, influencing and engaging stakeholders, and for those building and leading teams, and addresses the general skills and responsibilities of being a project professional. All project-based work relies fundamentally on the ability of people to work together. Chapter 4, Planning and Managing Deployment, is written primarily for those involved in the end-to-end process of delivering a project, whether a standalone project or one that is part of a program and/or portfolio, regardless of the life cycle approach taken. The standard is not prescriptive and does not aim to describe in detail how to in terms of methods, tools, and techniques, but rather it should be used as a foundational knowledge resource and a pointer to other sources of information. The first chapter, Setting Up for Success, is written primarily for those leaders within our organizations who have decisions to make about the role of projects, programs, and portfolios in implementing strategy. The main focus of the chapter is on the available options and the strategic decisions required to underpin and enable beneficial organization change. It is composed of 3 parts: implementing strategy, lifecycle options, and establishing governance and oversight. Organizations operate in a dynamic context, full of uncertainty, novelty, and turbulence. Projects, programs, and portfolios were introduced in order to enhance performance, bring about change, and enable organizations to adapt, improve, and grow. Project work, therefore, represents intentional investment in development, enhancement, and improvement. This section would be of particular interest to senior leaders and managers and organizations, and to project portfolio professionals, as it addresses organizational environment, strategic implementation, organization change, benefits to the organization, and structural choices. The diagram here illustrates that uncertainty arises from many sources. Leaders increasingly face new challenges, including the emergence of new markets, internet-connected global competition, new sources of innovation, rising customer expectations, disruptive technologies, and the growing diversification of the workforce. Stable and predictable contexts are hard to find, and the models and approaches used for managing need to be updated to reflect a world characterized by uncertainty, turbulence, novelty, ambiguity, and complexity. Strategic intent is a term used to describe the aspirational plans, overarching purpose, or intended direction of travel needed to reach an organization vision. Corporate leaders are accountable for demonstrating profitability and return on investment, and therefore view project work as a critical part of delivering that investment and contributing to the overall benefit of the organization. Portfolios play an important part in maintaining the alignment between project work and strategic objectives, and enabling the realization of the benefits that underpin the successful capture of the intended value, securing the return on investment. Delivering benefits is the primary reason why organizations undertake change. And given limited resources, there is a need to develop an improved understanding of potential investments and the reasons for undertaking them. Making change work for the organization entails identifying a viable set of potential benefits and delivering value by realizing the promised benefits. There are multiple options for delivering change and benefits, depending on the purpose and overall desire. The scale, significance, and complexity of the proposed undertaking play a part in determining which approach to use. The choice in how to structure investments encompasses project, programs, and portfolios. Projects are unique, transient endeavors undertaken to bring about change and achieve planned objectives, which can be defined in terms of outputs, outcomes, or benefits. Programs are unique and transient strategic endeavors undertaken to achieve a defined set of objectives, incorporating a group of related projects and change management activities. Portfolios then are used to select, prioritize, and control an organization's programs and projects in line with its strategic objectives and capacity to deliver. Their goal is to balance the implementation of change initiatives and the maintenance of business as usual, while optimizing return on investments. There are many ways of structuring and organizing project work. One of the more important shaping decisions involves around the choice of an approach and the associated life cycle that matches that philosophy. The second section here is concerned with clarifying the different options and highlighting their implications. It's of particular interest to senior leaders in organizations, as well as to managers and project professionals, as it addresses life cycle philosophy, linear life cycles, iterative life cycles, hybrid life cycles, extended life cycles, and product life cycles. Life cycles are fundamental to the management of project work. Different approaches can be utilized for deployment depending on the desired output benefits and outcomes and the expected uncertainty, novelty, and risk appetite. The choice of deployment approach will play a key part in selecting the most suitable form of life cycle, and therefore determine the stages involved in organizing project work and indicate how they are interrelated and sequenced. Specific philosophies for deployment include linear life cycles, where the initiative progresses through a sequential series of steps, incremental life cycles, where the target stage is achieved through a stage series of smaller steps, which can be used to deliver quick wins, conserve scarce resource, or deliver early benefits, or iterative life cycles, where prototype time boxes or parallel activities are utilized to acquire new insights, obtain feedback, and explore high-risk options. Evolutionary life cycles then are used for deployment, entails a number of major transitions, each based on user feedback from the preceding transition. There is no universal best approach, and project professionals select the most suitable arrangement for their context, most often combining features from any of these into some form of a hybrid life cycle. Having identified the approaches for developing and deployment, the new assets, capabilities, and systems that can address strategic needs, it is essential to create governance assurance and oversight mechanisms, systems and frameworks to underpin and enable the achievement and support the realization of measurable, beneficial change. The Establishing Governance and Oversight section addresses governance principles, assurance principles, sustainability, strategic sourcing, sponsorship, investment decisions, business case, temporary structures, talent management, and governance boards. This chapter, Preparing for Change, is primarily for those people charged with leading any project, program or portfolio of any size or complexity. The focus is on preparing for change, and in particular to considering in advance the practices that are important in early life cycle shaping, mid-life cycle assurance, learning and maturity, and late life cycle transition into use. The chapter is composed of 3 parts: shaping the early life cycle, assurance, learning and maturity, and transition into use. Shaping the early life cycle is conducted at multiple levels. At project level, sets up projects of all sizes for success. Program shaping sets up programs to deliver the desired beneficial change. Portfolio shaping sets up portfolios to ensure efficient delivery of objectives. In addition, shaping of procurement strategy matches supply chain engagements to needs, and operational adjustments ensures operational and project-based work is coordinated. Assurance, learning and maturity is of particular interest to project, program and portfolio leaders, thinking about how to manage performance within the context of the organizational capabilities and maturity. It covers the PMO, which provides support structures for projects, programs and portfolios. Decision gates to manage progression through the life cycle. Information management to capture evidence to support buy-in, learning and assurance. Audits and insurance to ensure decisions are based on evidence. Knowledge management to connect people to create insight and use knowledge to improve outcomes. Community of practice to invest in people and knowledge. And maturity of practice to invest in the predictability of delivering results. Ultimately, the organization return on investment from project-based working is accomplished when the particular outputs of the projects are transformed into organizational outcomes of benefits to stakeholders. Transition into use is broken down further into business readiness to prepare the ground for successful handover and adoption. Transition of project outputs to ensure that outputs enable the intended benefits. Adoption and benefits realization to create the new normal in line with the business case. Unplanned project endings to identify when closure of the original project is the right business decision. Administrative closure of projects to shut down all deployment activity and obtain corporate acceptance of completion. Closing programs and portfolios, which is retiring coordinating frameworks of projects when they cease to add value. The People and Behaviours chapter is written for anyone involved in projects, programs and portfolios, engaging and influencing stakeholders, building and leading teams, and concerns the generic skills and responsibilities of being a project professional. The objective is to make it clear that all project-based work relies fundamentally on the ability of people to work together. The chapter is composed of 3 parts: engaging stakeholders, leading teams, and working professionally. There's wide agreement that understanding stakeholders is critical work. But this section challenges the position that stakeholders can be managed and suggests the need to think instead of how we understand, engage, and influence stakeholders. It involves identifying and understanding stakeholders, who needs to be engaged and influenced, social context to navigate socio-political complexity, engagement and influence to work with people and build support to achieve intended outcomes, facilitation to make it easy to collaborate and solve problems, and conflict resolution to facilitate win-win solutions where at all possible. Leading a group of people so that they can become a high-performing team is skilled work, and some would argue the most important skill that a project professional needs to develop. Leading teams needs to address things like establishing teams for projects progress with performers, working with people in different places and time zones through virtual working, creating the right context for teams to develop and perform, provide leadership to provide vision, direction, feedback and support so people can do their best work, understand organizational culture and how things get done within the organization, understand the benefits and responsibilities of embracing diversity, and safeguarding self and the team from the effects of unsustainable work stress and pressure. Working professional then relates to communication, negotiation and time management, which are basic management skills that apply universally, not just in project-based work. But they have a particular focus in projects, programs and portfolios that warrants their inclusion in the APM body of knowledge. Communication to ensure the exchange of relevant information, negotiation to plan, conduct and follow up on agreements, time management to manage personal time to achieve priorities, the regulatory environment to navigate the legal and regulatory environment, ethics and standards to maintain a trusted profession, and continuing profession development to continually develop competence. The final chapter is on planning and managing deployment and is written primarily for those involved in the end-to-end process of delivering a project, whether a standalone project or one that is part of a program portfolio, and regardless of the life cycle approach taken. The chapter is broken down into 3 parts: defining outputs, integrating planning, and controlling deployment. Defining outputs is written for people working to a plan and deliver either standalone projects or projects within programs and portfolios. The emergence and growing popularity of iterative approaches requires us to think about defining outputs in a different, more adaptive way. The danger, however, is to assume that the approach is designed to build an agility and flexibility and does not require the discipline to define some things clearly. For example, benefits that justify the investment or the acceptance criteria for deliverables. Understanding the different options and maintaining a balance is always important. Defining outputs addresses the following: success and benefits to relate understanding of what success means for different stakeholders. Objectives and requirements, which is developing a comprehensive and measurable set of requirements which are critical to project success. Options and solutions to explore multiple options until the preferred solution is identified. Scope definition to translate the requirements into outputs for the chosen solution. And quality planning to ensure outputs are delivered in accordance with requirements. The definition of outputs is then developed into detailed planning and requires a focus on multiple areas and the integration of those areas into a baseline project management plan. The topics include contract award, risk identification and risk analysis, estimation in terms of prediction of time and resources required to complete the scope of work, scheduling using time-based planning such as critical path and critical chain, source optimization or trying to get the balance managing scope, quality, time and cost in a constrained system, cost planning to understand where costs fall over time, contingency planning to ensure plans reflect required confidence levels, and deployment baseline, which is to agreeing the integrated plan to enable managed deployment. Controlling deployment then is about ensuring there is good information about progress and performance, which in turn facilitates informed corrective action and decision making to ensure that the business case is delivered as well as possible. In the final analysis, people deliver projects, and strong relationships with people underpin the administrative and bureaucratic disciplines required during deployment. And controlling deployment addresses the following: progress monitoring and reporting to track performance against the deployment baseline, contract management to monitor and manage supplier performance, Risk management to develop responses to minimize threats and maximize opportunities. And contingency management to control the release of management reserves. Issue management to adapt the plan to resolve issues that arise. Change control to manage variations and change requests in a controlled way. Configuration management to ensure the continual fit of configuration items. And quality control to safeguard the conformance of outputs and outcomes to requirements. So that was a very quick run through and overview of the APM Body of Knowledge 7th edition. If you manage to get your hands on a hard copy, you might like to explore the range of references and additional readings which are contained within. I've picked out a few here for you. So like the PMI, the APM have a whole range of standards and guidance documents developed by various specific interest groups, and these are very useful resources for our practitioners. The last two references are textbooks, which you might also find of interest.